Okay, ladies and gents, are we live? Welcome to another video. It's your favorite real Asian robot right here, and this is your ultimate beginner guide for gear in Where Winds Meet. If you've opened your inventory and thought to yourself, I have no idea what any of this does, then this video is for you. We're going to break down exactly how gear works in this game, how to not waste your time or resources, and in this guide, what I'm going to cover is how gear works, where to get gear, whether you should enhance your gear, set effects, how they all work, rarity and tier and how it affects your gear, and how to use your mental energy effectively so you're gearing up smart instead of burning it on trash, alright? By the end of this video, you should know what to equip right now, when to upgrade, when to save your resources, and how to start planning for real sets later on in the game. I cannot stress enough though that this is a beginner guide. If you are a new player who is feeling lost, this is the video for you. If you're already experienced, you don't even need this video in the first place, but we'll have updated guides for endgame much later on. So if you find this helpful, then while you watch, make sure you drop a like, and if you want more Where Winds Meet guides, make sure to subscribe as well. Alright, I'll be doing the best I can to guide you on this game, like I do with all games, so let's have a fun journey together. Now, let's begin with the basics. How does gear actually work in Where Winds Meet? This is the big question that everyone's always asking, so let's go in. Gear is very simple. In this game, alright, it's not actually complex, and I'm gonna break it down for you. Gear is just equip, alright? It's a simple process. You equip your gear, it improves your stats. Simple, right? Okay, you have two offensive weapons, alright? They will increase your physical attack. Now, whether it's a ranged weapon or a melee weapon, it's the same, physical attack, okay? And these two do not stack, as far as I know. So although they can both trigger a set effect together, the physical attack is based on what the weapon you're actually using. It doesn't stack together, okay? You also have a disc and a pendant, which is also included in your offensive gear set. The disc will increase your minimum physical attack, and the pendant will increase your maximum physical attack, all right? All of this works together to form the offensive set for your gear. We'll go into that later. All right, defensive. In terms of defensive gear, you've got the crown, you've got the robe, you have the leg wraps, and you have the bracers. All right, all of this will increase your max hit points and physical defense. All right, that is what each one does. Now, each of these items has their own individual stat roll here, okay, much like the offensive weapons. They each have their individual stat roll, and what is important to understand is that they also have their own set effect, which is separate from the offensive gear. So make sure you're choosing separate offensive and defensive gear sets based on your needs, okay? I'll go through the effects of rarity and tier and all that later on in the video. And last but not least is your ranged gear. Ranged gear consists of the bow as well as the ring. The bow itself will increase the base bow damage, so the base range damage that you do, and the ring will increase your weakness hit damage. This is when you hit a specific weak point on the target, all right? And that is what your gear does. The range equipment does not function with set effects, all right? So the range equipment does not affect your sets, so it's, at the time of this guide, completely separate. This is because probably we're still in the beginner stages, so we haven't seen how the end game is going to look like. Now that you understand the basics, all right, of how gear works, the most important question is, where do you get gear? How do you gear up in Where Winds Meet? Gearing up is a very simple process. All right, what you want to do is, let's say I want to get more swords. It says obtain more here, right? Okay, when you are obtaining more gear, there are two real methods. You can go through the campaign challenges or the outpost challenges. Each campaign challenge, all right, has different gear sets that will drop. Okay, this one is, as far as I know, Maple's Chill, Maple's Sorrow. This is Maple. Oops, sorry about that. Let me just go back there. So Void King. Okay, so that's Void King. This one's this. They only show you Maple, but in actuality, it's not. Okay, sorry about that. That was the skins that I'm looking at. All right, this is the weapon appearance. My apologies. They actually have different sets, which you can see here. This is the Hawkwing set. All right, this is the Hawkwing set. Jadeware set. There's usually 2 bosses that correspond to the set that you actually want. There's also sets for defensive. So this is the offensive set. This is the defensive set. Okay, you've got the Form Bend. And then here is Form Bend as well. This one is Eagle Rise. Eagle Rise will be for a different type of build. So depending on the type of build you want, you take on the appropriate boss, or you can take on the appropriate outpost. The outposts have the same thing. All right. It will tell you that it will give you a particular type. However, as far as I know, the outposts do not specifically correspond to a set. If you look here, it's quite literally randomized. As far as I know, it's randomized. So if you are targeting a specific set, it is actually better to go for the campaign bosses, because the campaign bosses will give you specific set drops. Okay, so the outpost challenges are, as far as I can tell, randomized. But if you have different results, or if they do give specific sets, please let me know, because I'd love to know that. They should really put that information in the opening area, but it doesn't really matter. Either way, I mostly hunt the bosses because they're just easier. Once you know their pattern, you just beat them down and just grab the sets and off you go. Okay, now that you understand how to get gear, all right, let's move on to enhancement. Should you enhance your gear? Long story short, I'm going to explain to you, yes. Okay, when it comes to enhancing, enhancing is applied to the slot specifically, not the actual weapon. So, for example, whether I apply a spear in this slot, or let's say, you know what, let's put twin blades in here. Okay, let's put twin blades in here. For example, here we go. Replace that. All right. And we'll just use the martial art. Okay, let's chuck some twin blades in here. Even if I go back to my enhance, it's still the same. Do you see that? What is applied is the stats from the enhancement slot itself. So should you enhance your gear? Yes. You should immediately enhance every single slot as soon as you can. Take note that the left-hand slot only applies to left-hand weapon, right-hand slot only applies to right-hand weapon. All right, disc will only apply to disc, and pendant will only apply to pendant. But all of this is pretty important because it increases the maximum possible damage that you can do. All right, so you want all this. All right, there's no minimum physical attack increase only. The disc slot actually increases maximum physical attack. Not quite sure why they did that, but that's fine. And all of the defensive slots increase max hit points, physical defense. So pretty much the same. All right. The helm and the bracers increase maximum hit points only, whereas the chest and the legs, the greaves, sorry, they increase both maximum hit points and physical defense. For the bow slot and the thumb ring, you cannot enhance them, so you don't have to worry. You have basically 8 slots that you need to enhance, and there'll be an average level for your enhancement. All right, as you gain certain level average levels for your enhancement, you'll actually gain bonuses. For example, the average level of 10 grants you a maximum hit point increase of 808. At the next phase, you will at level 15 overall enhancement, you will gain max hit points of 1479. Okay, so there you go. This average is pretty important, and it will help boost your stats up. So that is gear enhancing. And again, you should enhance as soon as you can. All right, the answer to this question is very simple. Enhance as soon as you can, because you're not wasting any of these resources. Okay, now there's 2 last little things we're going to cover in this video, and they are pretty important, but also fairly fast to go through. First and foremost is set effects. Oh, sorry, 3 last things to cover, but they're fairly fast. Okay, set effects are what is important for your builds later on, so you want to get very used to them early. Why are set effects important? Okay, let me just go back in. Okay, set effects are important because set effects will function together with the builds that you choose. For example, by having the full Jadeware set, not only do I increase my maximum physical attack by +8, I will also have it where casting martial arts skills activates the Jadeware effect, increasing affinity damage by 10% and deals 20% more affinity damage to targets under control or who have lower than 40% chi. This effect will last for 12 seconds and can only trigger once every 30 seconds. Okay? Once you trigger it, it'll basically last for the duration. But these are simple ways that you can enhance the damage of your builds by triggering certain effects on the enemy. All right, same is true for the defensive set. For the defensive set, there will be a recommended set because The 2 set effect will increase your physical defense, and then the 4 piece will be specific to your build. In this case, let's say you use the Nameless Sword style. You can actually create a chi shield for yourself, which will stop you from taking chi damage. And if you have more than 85% chi or chi damage immunity shield, it will reduce all hit point damage taken by 20% while also increasing your shield duration by 2. The Nameless Sword style generates a chi shield with its main ability, so this is how your set will function, and this is how your set will boost you up. All right? This is why set effects are important, and you need to have them in order to maximize. What sets should you go for? It depends on your build, but if you go into if you go into the improvement guide, there's a path guide right here. Depending on what role you want to take in the game, it will recommend certain sets to you, and you can choose to go for that because it will help you determine what you need to do. For example, if you want to go with the Infernal Twin Blades, you are going more for a crit build, so you want the Mortal Rope Dart, Infernal Twin Blade style. The gear set would be Swallow Call, as well as Calm Waters. Okay, you could go for either. Here they tell you Form Bend and Jade Wear. For this one, it'll be the Swallow set for your weapons and the Calm Water set for your defensive equipment. Okay, sorry, got a little confused because it's my first time doing a video like this, but I really wanted to go in depth and explain it all. Okay, now that you understand about set effects, let's talk about rarity and tiers. How does rarity affect your gear? Actually, it's very straightforward. Rarity is a straight up upgrade to the base stats of your weapon. So let me show you. I have a blue rarity sword. Actually, this would probably be best shown with a spear, with the twin blades instead of the sword. So with the purple twin blades, the 10 directions dual blades right here, I have a gear tier of 71, all right? The physical attack is 12 to 27, and there is a gold roll here, which improves with your gear tier. So a higher gear tier usually means this extra roll right here is higher. My sword right now only has a blue roll, so it's at a 68 gear tier. All right. If I keep going after swords, I might be able to get a better roll on this, but the physical attack will not change if I get another purple sword. All right. What the rarity of your gear affects is the base stat. So for example, blue twin blades, even though this is also level gear tier 31, all right, gear tier 31 here, this one has not only a worse roll here, but a lower base stat, so the gear tier is lower, all right? The rest of the stats are not affected. So for example, this twin blade has a gear tier of 65 versus this one, which is at 71. Why is that the case? Take a look right here. The option roll is the only thing that differs between the two of these, which means that the option roll is what is affecting the gear tier, all right? But the base stat is the same for both because they are the same rarity. So rarer gear, better, all right? Then you got to worry about the option roll. Rarer gear with a crappy option roll might not be so great as slightly worse gear, all right, with a much better option roll. This might actually change later on because as far as I can see right now, the base stats are a difference of like 3, but later on it might be a much larger difference than that. So I think it would be wise to think about this. Also, the option roll can differ. This one is the minimum physical attack, which will help me deal a lot more consistent damage, but won't help me reach higher heights. Whereas this one is maximum physical attack, which will help me reach higher heights, but my damage might vary a lot during the attacks. So please be aware of that the roll is not always the same for this equipment. Okay, the same actually applies here. There is literally no difference. All right, your gear tier is based on the roll here. All right, as well, and the base stats are not affected. So the base stat here is completely unaffected. It is only the rarity of the gear that will affect the base stats. All right, same thing here. Okay, the base stats never change, but the rarity, once the rarity changes, the base stats do change. All right. But your role here, your option role here can be very important. So please think about that. That is how rarity and stats work. So, rarity and tiers and how those changes affect your gear. Last but not least, how do you use your mental energy effectively? This is going to be a last little snippet for gear. Okay, when it comes to using your mental energy effectively, because as you guys go through these challenges to get gear, take note that you will need to use up this energy stat up here. It does replenish over time, But what you have to understand is that it auto recharges 1 point every 9 minutes, and it will cost you 20 points in order to claim gear from either the outpost or the campaign challenges. So how do you use your time effectively? Okay, what you really need to do is decide for yourself what kind of set you want to go for. Then just focus on that and go and kill the target. Like I said, I really recommend campaign bosses over the outpost challenges. The outpost challenges are just like if you need to upgrade your mystic arts, because that's part of the extra that they give you. But it is much better to focus on the bosses instead, because that will actually help you get the stats you need and the type of gear that you actually need. So I highly recommend that. If you do that enough, what will happen is that you'll be able to gear up effectively and hopefully have enough saved over for when the next breakthrough occurs. That's it. That is everything you need to know about gear in Where Winds Meet. Quick summary of everything that we have talked about today. Okay, first and foremost, there's offensive and defensive gear. Rarity and the tier of your gear, all right, rarity and the option rolls will determine your gear's tier, and higher tier gear has better stats overall, but please do check the option to make sure it's suitable for your build. Sets are very important in order to finish your gearing up stage, because you need those set effects to get the best out of your build. All right. And ranged weapons cannot be enhanced. Enhance all of your equipment as soon as possible. Do not wait, because it will boost your stats, and it applies no matter which gear you equip, even if you change your gear around. Last but not least, getting the type of gear you need is from the campaign bosses and from the outposts. Use your mental energy effectively by targeting the bosses until you have the sets you want, and then focus on improving those sets further. All right. That is basically it. That is everything you need to know about gear. When it comes to gear tier, oh, sorry, there's one last little secret I almost forgot. If you've been watching up till now, then let me tell you a little something about buying gear. Did you know that you can also purchase gear, all right, through the season shop? This is a weekly thing, but if you go to the gear chest, right, as you upgrade, there's a weekly stock of gear chests through which you can literally just pick out the gear that you want, and it can actually be pretty useful. So I actually purchased all the tier 31 chests, because you get a bunch of these anyway. And although I do have to say, you only get 20,000 per week, so don't waste them willy-nilly. Make sure that you're spending effectively on gearing up, and then if you can afford it, don't spend it all. Maybe just get one set. I kind of wasted and got both the tier 31 sets, but now I've got like mental energy left over, which I'm going to spend anyway. And even then, because it's randomized, you never know what you're going to get. So I'd say maybe just get the 15 chests, see if you can get a head start on the set that you want, while also acquiring other sets along the way. And then from there, you can see whether or not it will be beneficial for you to purchase more or use your mental energy and farm instead. All right, that brings us to the end. Thank you so much for sticking with us this long. If this video helped you out, all right, then let me know in the comments. That'll be it for the Ultimate Beginner Gear Guide for Where Winds Meet. We've gone through how gear works, where it comes from, where to enhance, why set effects matter, how rarity and tiers change your stats, rarity and options change your stats, how to use mental energy effectively, how to get gear by buying it, all right? And that's basically everything you will need to stop feeling lost about your gear as a new player. If this video helped you, drop a like. It tells YouTube this guide is worth recommending to other new players. And let me know in the comments what level you are, what build you're aiming for, and what you're still confused about. I read everything, and I'll use your questions to plan future gear and build videos. If you want more Where Winds Meet guides, builds, and tips, hit subscribe, turn on the notifications so you don't miss the next upload or stream. All right, that's the like button right there. Make sure you're hitting it. All right, I've got videos and streams planned around daily routines, combat, farming, specific set builds, all that kind of stuff. All right, thank you very much. This is Real Asian Robot. Good luck with your drops. Don't waste your gear, and I'll be seeing you in the next video. Thank you very much. Have a good time.